Our scripture today is from Luke 21, 5-19, but I'm only going to read just a short part. And actually, this part is from Isaiah 12:2. Behold, God is my salvation. I will trust and not be afraid, for the Lord Jehovah is my strength and my song. He also has become my salvation. How many of you guys are afraid of anything? Besides microphones. Are you afraid of anything? No? What are you afraid of?
I'm scared of the haunted mansion at Disney World in Florida, and I'm scared of bats.
But I'm scared of it.
What are you afraid of?
I'm scared of bats.
Bats?
What's so scary about bats? They're nocturnal. And if you
Are you afraid of anything, Ryan? No? Oh, you're brave. Are you afraid of anything?
Yes.
What are you afraid of?
spiders.
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 What about you?
That's my
Oh,
mom.
you
That
guys are
question.
good. Oh, okay. Mom, what are you afraid of? Nothing. Oh, you guys are good.
I'm scared.
Okay. Anybody afraid of snakes?
Oh, it's the dew.
Okay. How about the dark? I used to know someone that was so afraid of the dark he made his brother go with him. Is anyone afraid of a thunderstorm?
I'm doubly scared of them.
Okay. Well, the fact is everybody's afraid of something. Even your parents, even the pastor, everyone. Even rich and famous people are afraid. Okay, you guys are probably all too young for this, but the older children in the audience should know. John Madden, he was once the coach of the Oakland Raiders, a professional football team, and now announces games on Monday Night Football. John is afraid of flying. He has such a fear of flying that he bought his own bus to take him around the country to broadcast football games. The bus cost him $800,000. I guess if you're afraid of flying, it helps to be able to afford your own bus. Donny Osmond. Okay. I'm dating myself here, guys. He's a well-known singer who suffers from the fear of performing. Isn't that kind of hard? I mean, you're singing, you're out there performing all the time, and you're afraid of it. Yeah. He once had a stage fright so bad that he couldn't go on stage because he thought he was going to faint. Have you ever had a fear of performing? How about being in front of people talking? I don't like it. Okay. I'm sure you guys probably know this next person, Johnny Depp.
No, him.
Yeah. He was a star of Pirates of the Caribbean. Do you know what makes this brave pirate shake in his boots? The same thing it does Jeff. Does anybody know what that is? Spiders. We all know Jeff's weakness. I don't like him either. Ask anybody if they come crawling around. I have one of the kids take care of them.
She doesn't like her.
No, I don't. Are any of you afraid of spiders? I know that many spiders are harmless, but even if a spider don't hurt me, it can always make me hurt myself by trying to get away from it. Okay, what about Drew Barrymore? Ooh.
What was that?
Drew Barrymore was one of the stars in the movie Charlie's Angels. She has claustrophobia. Do you know what claustrophobia is?
You can't be too close to people.
You can't be in closed areas. It is not good. They get really lightheaded and they start having panic attacks. It's not good. It means that you're afraid of small places. And if you have claustrophobia, you don't want to be in an elevator that gets stuck between floors. Well, one day Jesus was with his disciples in the temple. The disciples were commenting on how beautiful the temple was when Jesus began to tell them about some things that were going to happen. He told them that the temple would one day be destroyed and that there would be wars, earthquakes, and people starving. He also told them that they were going to be hated and persecuted and even thrown into prison. Those are pretty scary things, right? Yeah, I think so. It would be understandable for the disciples to be afraid, but Jesus told them not to be afraid. He promised that he would be with them, and not a hair on their heads would be harmed if they put their trust in him. Jesus had also promised to help us when we are afraid. Every one of us has something we're afraid of and can cause a fear and cause us to, but fear sometimes can be a good thing, because sometimes fear gets you out of danger. Yeah. Jesus wants us to have, after all, he has promised to help us whenever we are afraid. When you're afraid and you're in your bedroom late at night and you're trying to go to sleep and you're afraid, what do you guys, anybody have, this is my friend. And actually he's Alicia's friend. This is Huggabee. Yeah, my mom had a double bypass, and Alicia was like 2 or 3, and when she came home she gave her this bear, because they gave her this bear. And it's called Heartbeat Bear. Well, she couldn't say heartbeat, so she said Huggabee. So this is a Huggabee bear. And she's had this since she was about that age. But, I had a bear, too, when I was little. And whenever you were scared, you had something to grab onto and hold. But you know something? This is something good if you're little and you need something to grab on and hold. But there's something better for us to grab on and hold. Do you know what that is? Jesus. Yes, if we're scared, we pray. You pray to Jesus and trust him, and he'll take that fright from you. You know that? Well, I have something for you that you can hold on to if you're afraid. So if you want to come up here, I'll give it to you. Let's bow our heads and pray. Dear Jesus, we put our faith and trust in your promise that you will be with us when we are afraid. We ask that you'll help us and keep us strong in our faith with you, and bless this money that has been given. Amen.
I'd rather have Jesus than silver or gold. I'd rather be his than have riches untold. I'd rather have Jesus than houses or lands. I'd rather be led by his nail-pierced hands than to be the king of a vast domain, or be held in sin's dread sway. I'd rather have Jesus than anything this world affords today. I'd rather have Jesus than men's applause. I'd rather be faithful to his dear cause. I'd rather have Jesus than worldwide fame. I'd rather be true to his holy name than to be the king of a vast domain, or be held by sin's dread sway. I'd rather have Jesus than anything this world affords today. He's fairer than lilies of rarest bloom. He's sweeter than honey out of the comb. He's all that my hungering spirit needs. I'd rather have Jesus and let him lead than to be the king of a vast domain, or be held by sin's dread sway. I'd rather have Jesus than anything this world affords today.
My text today is Mark 16:15 through 16. And it says, "He said to them, 'Go into all the world, preach the gospel to all creation. Whoever believes and is baptized will be saved, but whoever does not believe will be condemned.'" Well, most of you have been asking me questions for a while about how was mission trip, so I decided not to delay this any longer. Plus, Pastor asked me, so. We went to Lesotho, South Africa on the 26th of January. And this was my first mission trip, and it just happened to be 8,000 miles from home. So about halfway through, I got kind of homesick for my mom and dad. But as you know, mission trips are a good experience for growing, and it teaches you a lot about who you are and what God really means to you by seeing how other people live and treasure Him, sometimes more than you do yourself. That kind of got to me, so it was really nice going and seeing how other people worshiped Him. Our travel plans were on the 26th. We took a bus at 3 a.m. to Pittsburgh. I only got like 1 hour of sleep, but my mom didn't do any better. She had to drive. So from Pittsburgh, we stayed there for an hour or two, and we flew a small plane with 2 propellers for an hour to Canada. And I thought I had been in some small planes, but that was ridiculous. In Canada, we had an 8-hour layover. And Canada's not that fun. I'll say that right now. So from Canada, we went to Frankfurt, Germany. That wasn't so bad. We actually stayed there for about 11 hours, and we got to tour the area around Germany. And actually, it's really nice there, but they have a lot of KFCs. And then we had a plane. The next plane we took to Johannesburg, South Africa, held 600 people. in one plane. It was one of those double-decker planes. I couldn't find a picture of it, but I didn't have my camera either, so it was a pretty big plane. But it took half as much of the runway as a normal plane would, and that scared me half to death, I'll tell you that. Because it looks like a humpback whale in the air. Okay. When we got to South Africa, we took a local charter bus, which I will describe later. And then we took us 6 hours to get there, and that thing had no suspension. The travel in Africa on the bus itself wasn't as bad as you'd think. The roads were decent, I guess you could say. But there was a lot of scenic views, and I wish everybody could have gone, because it opened my eyes to more creation than you'd ever see in Ohio, because it's all flat. But our first arrival there was about 11 o'clock at night, and we didn't see anything till the next morning. But this is our beds after we woke up and made them, and they still don't look that great. But there was about enough room for maybe 15 people in one room, and all the guys stayed together, and the girls had their own cabin. They're pretty standard. I mean, since we didn't have a lot of people, everybody took the top bunk and used the bottom bunk for storage. So that was really nice, but we didn't do a lot of work that day. But Sabbath was our first church service with them, and our principal spoke, and he talked about the story of David and Goliath. And every time I hear him preach, the same story I've heard since I was little, it changes every time. So this is a picture taken from the dining hall, which we were not allowed to take pictures of because it's their girls' dorm. But that's the church, and it was built by Maranatha about 10 years before we got there. But this was Monday. Monday was our first bath, so going from Thursday to Monday was a big step. Never going to happen again. But this is the security at the hospital, and even though it's an Adventist facility, they have issues with theft and stuff, so they keep it guarded with African-made AK-47s, which shoot 4 times faster than a U.S. semi-automatic. So that was pretty scary to think that they are required to carry those because of the conditions. That was really scary. These are our bathrooms, though. Didn't work. No running water to them except for the last day we were there. There's a little term that they use in Africa that we learned really fast. And 1, you carry a bucket with you every time you go to the bathroom. 2, they say if it's yellow, let it mellow. If it's brown, flush it down. That's their term. So we had to learn that pretty fast because they're short on water. So this is our first hospital visit. We weren't allowed to take pictures inside the hospital because of the conditions. But according to their belief, they say that the window should be open for ventilation all the time, which most hospitals there do. But in Lesotho, since we're in the, I forgot what elevation it is, but we're pretty high up and we don't get much breeze up there. So all the windows are open between the areas in the hospital. The doors are shut on the inside, but the windows are all open, and there's no screens, the ACs are running. And the diseases are passed around through the air, through the hospital. They have no sanitation. And a lot of times the nurses don't have enough supplies, so they will take IVs and clean them with soap and water and reuse them. And our first day there, we were pretty shocked. They had a young man who, he was beaten up pretty bad by a gang there, and they couldn't do anything for him except for give him an IV and bandage him with washed cloth. that they reuse also. And that was what they have. So when we went into town, our principal bought a bunch of supplies to give them, and they were very grateful for those supplies. And that was our sightseeing money, but I think it went pretty good. But this is the girls' cabin that they used. They shared a cabin with our work director, so they were the first people up every morning because his alarm's pretty loud apparently. That's what they said. I didn't hear it. But my mom says I sleep through anything anyway. So this is the Maranatha one-day school for the kids who lost their parents due to AIDS. That was only there maybe 2 years before we got there, but I got a picture of that. And the day I took this picture, me and Josh and a friend named Zach were working on laying foundations for rain catchers. I forgot what they're called, but they're the big 100-gallon green containers that they put, cistern. We were building foundations for those, and Josh and I were laying the brick and pouring the cement for them. And about 12 o'clock there, the kids came over to us and asked what we were doing, and we told them, and they invited us to play soccer with them, so it was a pretty neat experience. I'll tell you, those kids are fast. I guess soccer's in their blood. This is one of 2 ambulances that the hospital has. You're probably going to laugh at the next one. But this ambulance was not working for 5 years when we got there. Our principal, me, and our maintenance, another maintenance worker from school, actually found out what was wrong and fixed it for them. So they were pretty thankful for that. And as soon as we fixed it, they used a whole tank of gas going into town and picking up people that same day. This is their backup ambulance. It's official, it's legal, it's just a dirt bike with a sidecar that says ambulance. Never got to see them use it, kind of thankful. But it looks like fun. Wednesday we had a break. We had a couple options we could do. Josh and I kind of went separate on this day, but Josh and most of the kids went to a waterfall, and they were going to rappel a 675-foot waterfall. But in order to do that, they had to get there for a class that was like at 6 in the morning, and it was like a 3 or 4 hour drive, I think it was. So they didn't get to do that. So we went to a game reserve, and that was the first thing we saw. I assure you it was caged. I made sure of that, but I didn't get many pictures of it, but I got a few. This is the only male lion they have at the game reserve because of its species. It's almost extinct. So there is 12 females per male at this place. That's just to show you how extinct the males are. This is a friend of mine. Her name is Joanna. When she took that picture, her dad took it. I got a copy of it. As soon as they were done, she stood up, and all 3 lions jumped at her and got shocked by the electric fence at the same time. So that was pretty scary. When we got back that night, we got back at maybe 9 o'clock, we found out that Josh and his group that went to the waterfall could not make it because of the roads. See, right before we got there, there was a long period where it was raining constantly, and the roads to the bridges were all gone. So they ended up going through town and going to little merchant shops and buying souvenirs and things, and Josh thought that was pretty cool. I kind of wish I went with him at the same time, but you can't be 2 places at once. And I ran out of film for the last part of the week, so I didn't have a camera. So I got these pictures off of our principal. This was his sermon the last week. I forgot what he talked about, though. That's pretty sad. But this is their congregation. It's probably this church cut in half, and they have about 150 members every week. come from the community. And they have a piano player, but she never plays, which is kind of interesting. But the people, there's always one lady that sits in the front just so she can start singing. She always likes to sing. Everywhere you go throughout the week, you could hear her singing and know exactly what time it was, because she sang at lunchtime and at 3. So if you were stuck in the day, you know exactly what time it was. But she was a couple of the kids' chauffeurs, I guess you can call it. She showed us around the camp and showed us to the village chief. We didn't get to meet the king of Lesotho. I was kind of hoping that'd be fun. But the chief's wife, we weren't allowed to get pictures of. She was bitten by a spider. I'm assuming it was a brown recluse, or however you say it. Her foot, when they first found it, you could see it to the bone, all the way through the bone. And it was a 5-inch circle. The lady that works at the hospital that my mom is friends with, she mixed honey and charcoal, and within 6 months, the hole was no bigger than the size of a quarter. So, we were praying for her every day, and we sang Amazing Grace to her, and she was in tears when we were done. And that was our encounter with the village chief. Saturday night, our last night there, we gathered a bunch of wood and had a bonfire. Didn't get any pictures of the fire, but Josh was picking and eating grass. Good old farmer. But we sang some songs, and Pastor Mike read us a story. That's where I got the verse from. He was talking about going into the whole world, preaching and teaching the gospel, even unto the ends of the world. And our last day there, a bunch of the kids from the local area came and talked to us, and they were singing the songs with us. And that was our last day with them. And the next part, I didn't get to see personally, but our pastor and Bible teacher / history teacher of the school went to Cape Town, and they have penguins in Africa. I really never knew that. The water is so cold that they actually do have penguins in Africa. And they have a certain name, but I'm not allowed to say it. I don't know who named this penguin, but apparently it was a pest when they named it. But anyway, that's all the pictures I have of the mission trip. So, on Thursday and Friday, I don't have pictures of it, but me and the principal's son and a friend, Johnny, we built stairs out of red brick. And it was for the Sabbath school kids because they have gaps in their floors that are about 4 feet high. And they would literally have to pick up kids and put them up there so they could go to Sabbath school. So Johnny and Alex and I grabbed a bunch of red bricks that were sitting around the camp and mixed cement mix and sand to make mortar, and we built them 2 flights of stairs. And the last Sabbath we were there, we did not get to see them use them. But we heard a lot of compliments from them. There were literally people coming up to us in tears thanking us for it. And Friday we finished it up. And then Sabbath we went to a different church and listened to our Bible teacher speak. But anyway, today in our hectic lives, sometimes we forgot to stop and look at the little signs that Jesus has for us. Or maybe in your life, He might have a big ad sign on the side of the road. Maybe it's digital. You never know. But we don't pay attention to it because the task at our hands, our eyes are literally glued to it because we worry so much about it. What do you see when you think of Africa? When I first heard we were going to Africa, my first idea was cool, lions, elephants, and people living out of grass huts hunting for food. Maybe we could preach to them. But our first day there, when we got to Johannesburg, it was a city bigger and had more people than Columbus. That kind of blew my mind. But I'm not sure what it is with Americans, but Africans actually wear their pants up to their stomachs. I don't know what's up with that. But I think America needs to invest in some belts because I don't think ours are working. Yeah, when we got to Johannesburg, like I said, I was expecting a local charter bus to pick us up for our 6-hour drive. We got a Sprinter. Now, Sprinter is a Mercedes, and it's a lot like a Dodge, but it's those narrow, full-sized vans that are awkwardly tall. So it looked like a humpback whale on wheels. So we got to ride 2 whales, one in the air and one on the ground. But the only thing I knew of this world was a portion of the U.S. for me that consisted of Michigan, Ohio, my New England trip, Oregon, California, and Georgia. That was my world. I feel that God used this trip to teach me about the rest of the world that so many people ignore in our daily lives. I know in our Sabbath school lesson today we talked about missions. And it was kind of a cool idea because we read some texts and stuff. And it really helped me to understand more and think about what I was doing every day. Because, as my dad pointed out last night, our mission field begins at our back porch. And we don't realize that because we're either working or we think in our mind that missions are always overseas or to the poor people, but it actually begins at our backyard. You helping your neighbor cut their grass for free is a mission work. And a lot of people, we don't understand that, but it's just a thought that maybe if we help other people in our neighborhood, we're doing more than we are sitting and watching TV and typing on Facebook. There are people in Lesotho that when you go on a mission trip, you always bring something back to you that you can remember for the rest of your life. Most people, that's pictures and a couple people that they met that they will never forget. For me, I met a kid about 11 years old. His name was BK. And that was simply because I couldn't pronounce it. So his name was BK. Now, he lost his mom before he could remember her due to AIDS. And his dad died 3 years before he got there because of AIDS. And yet he is the happiest kid you will ever meet. When we were there, when Josh and I were working on building the foundations, the first thing he said to us was, "Since you're building something for me, can I help make it easier on your backs?" The first thing he said to us when he met us. But right before we left, he asked to guess our ages. This was interesting. A friend of mine from school, his name is Zach, he thought he was 20 when he's really only 16. Josh was 14. Josh asked him, "Well, how'd you guess mine so young?" Because I know how old Justin Bieber is. That was the end of Josh's laughter for the day. He was talking about that for the rest of the trip. I was apparently 35. I'm not sure how that works, but from the starting point from Mount Vernon to Lesotho, South Africa, we touched 4 countries, not counting the U.S. You got Canada, Germany, South Africa, and Lesotho is its own country inside of South Africa. We touched lives along the way, like I said, that changed us as how we see God ourselves. But we used the GPS on the trip, and I thought this was kind of interesting. But if you've ever used the GPS, you know that it brings you to the busiest places of town, where there's always construction. I'm telling you, those things are junk. But if you think about it, the Bible is your GPS in your life. Sometimes it might not bring us the road that we want to go on, the shortcuts, but it brings you through all the construction of life. And it gets you down that straight, narrow road that leads you to God. Maybe it's not the straight road. Maybe there's a side road that God puts you on before you get on the highway. But He puts you down the road that He thinks you need to go on, leading us to Him, our ultimate destination. Thank you.